Hi there, this is Teri from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is this cute patchwork card. I've used the beautiful Free as a Bird stamp set together with papers from the Bird Ballad 12-inch pack. And I've cut the papers and laid them out to look like patchwork. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for the various elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. I'm going to build my patchwork onto a mat of Whisper White card, and this is actually bigger than I need, so I'm going to cut it down later on, and this will ensure all the edges of the patchwork are nice and neat. I plan to stick with the layout I used on my original card and use as many scrap pieces as I can. Now this first piece was the offcut to the top piece I used on my original card, so I'm going to use that definitely there. And then I cut this stripy one to go on my first card, but I cut the end too skinny, so I want to use that on this card today. I've got that polka dot rectangle which I'll use, and I'll cut off a piece to decorate the inside of my card. Then I'll add the stripe, and this is the only piece that needs to be cut with two diagonal cuts, so sort of into a point. All the others look like they've been cut that way, but they haven't actually. I've got two pieces, two rectangular pieces, and then the top and the bottom section just need one cut on each of them. Now I was going to use this yellow bird's feet paper, but I think because I'm using a Daffodil Delight mat to lay this onto, it'll be too much yellow, so I'm going to use the feathers instead for my bottom section. Now some of the mats need to be cut, so I'm going to do that next. My polka dot, I'm going to cut off a little strip from the bottom and use that to decorate the inside of my card, and then the rest will remain as a rectangular piece, so that will go under the top section and under the stripe. My birdcage piece will also stay as a rectangle. Then once the stripe is positioned over the top, it changes the look of the ones underneath, so they all look like they've been cut on the diagonal. Now this bottom section needs to be cut, so I'm going to cut that at an angle. The bottom piece needs to remain square, sort of fit the bottom of the mat. And I think we're almost there now. These can now be glued together. I'm starting with the top two, and I'm using my grid paper to help me align them. Now I've just taken a mental note of the overlap, which is about 1/2 inch. So I'm adding my glue to the bottom of that first panel, and I'm going to glue it on top of the polka dot rectangle. And I'm going to overlap on the left hand edge by about 1/2 inch. I just want to make sure that left hand edge is nice and straight. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the bottom two mats, so I just want to have an idea of what the overlap is on those bottom two pieces, and this time it was about 1 inch. So I can add my glue to the top edge of that bottom piece, because that is going to be the piece that goes on top. And then looking at the left hand edge, I can overlap by about 1 inch, and I know that should be okay for this card. Now before I start sticking anything down, I'm just going to check that the stripe piece I have will go across the middle and cover all the white mat that remains, which it does. I'm going to add my bottom two pieces to the white mat first of all, so I can add my glue to the reverse and then position those to the bottom of the mat. And it doesn't matter that they don't meet that right hand edge, because I'm going to trim this in a little while. And then I can add the two top sections. And then finally I can add my striped piece. Then all you need to do is trim it down to the size you need for the front of your card. Now, hopefully you spotted the measurement screen at the start of this video. You can also find all the measurements you need on my blog, and that's both in metric and imperial. This panel can now be added onto your Daffodil Delight mat. And then this whole section can be added to the front of your card base. Now I'm using basic black. It's half a sheet of standard card stock, scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. That little piece of polka dot designer series paper that I cut off earlier, I'm now going to add to the bottom of the white mat that's going inside my card. And I can now glue this into position. This is what the Free as a Bird stamp set looks like. Now I'm going to use a different sentiment this time. Instead of the thank you, I'm going to use the hello. I'm going to stamp it using Memento Tuxedo black ink just on a scrap of Whisper White. I'm going to use one of the smooth sailing dies to cut this out. I've already stamped and coloured my main image. Now this time I've used Daffodil Delight for the birds, which is why I used that mat in the background of my new card. The flowers were Calypso Coral and I used Old Olive for the leaves. The flowers on my original card were Petal Pink. The branch is coloured using Soft Suede. I'm using my Stitched Shapes framelit dies to cut this out, and I'm using one of the circles, one size down from the largest, to cut out those three little birds. Now the other little bird that's left I'm going to save because I'm going to use him on another card. I used the same banner die to cut out a Daffodil Delight one, and then I've used my layering circles framelit dies, one size down from the largest for the Daffodil Delight mat, and again one size down from the largest scallop circles for my black mat. I'm removing the side sections from my white sentiment banner, and then I will add dimensionals to the reverse and position this on top of the Daffodil Delight banner. I'm going to draw in the faux stitching using my basic black marker. Now this has a brush tip and a pen tip. I'm going to use the pen tip. Now you could draw all the stitching in freehand if you want to. I can't do that. I need to work on a straight edge, so I'm just using a ruler as a guide. And you only want to draw the stitching in on the pieces that are on top, so you don't have to do it against every single edge. I also needed a guide when I drew around the edge of my circle mat. Now you may find that you can do this freehand, but I couldn't. So in the end I found another circle die that was slightly smaller, and I could use the edge of it as a guide just to draw my black faux stitching. Once you've finished your stitching, you can add this circle to your black scallop circle. I've added dimensionals to the black scallop circle, the image panel, and also the sentiment banner. You can now position the image onto the daffodil mat. Finally, this can be added to the front of your card. Followed by the sentiment. And that's it, we're all done. A super sweet card. I love this stamp set. And here's my original one. I don't think I prefer either one this time, I like them equally. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.